Okay, so all bullshit aside, I'm gonna break this down and not fuck around. Like this is real talk. I'm not like here to bash these fools or nothing like that. Here's what the electric flat Earth theory is about. First of all, we're gonna start off with UNESCO. Okay, UNESCO is the United Nations. They're the UN, and they're the IMF. Who are these? Okay, before World War II and World War One, there was what they called the League of Nations, which was owned and run by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all of those guys, the international bankers. Um, so they turned it after World War One. Because they're the ones that talked everyone into disarming internationally, which left a bunch of people vulnerable, which then led to World War II. After World War II, the League of Nations became the United Nations. They changed their name, but it's been the same people. The IMF is the International Monetary Fund. Those are the bankers. That's the bank that deals with international money. That's what it's called, monetary fund. This goes back to World War II, the end of World War II. Okay? So at the end of World War II, they decide they want to start social engineering humanity. So there's no more like large conflicts supposedly. And that's where the UNESCO comes up. UNESCO has to deal with all the curriculum and everything that has to do with learning and pretty much socio-economic engineering. That's what it comes down to. So everything that you learned in school came from UNESCO. They started off with a few countries, then they moved up, and then they started taking over. Now they're over 180 separate nations, and they're preaching the same curriculum. Well, not the same curriculum. They decide like what India's gonna learn, then they decide what Africa's gonna learn, then they decide what the United Nations gonna learn, and they break it down and they spread it out like that. It all comes back to UNESCO though. So all curriculum, okay? I'm gonna put it right here. Curriculum. That's all. Everything that you've been saying and repeating about, like that it's a globe and then it's round, and that was something you learned in school. First and foremost, everyone did that. Everyone learned about the globe. Everyone was taught about the globe in school first. Okay, so now we know. I'm gonna move forward. I encourage everyone to look up UNESCO. You look up the United Nations. Look up the International Monetary Fund, and see how far back their financial shenanigans have gone on. I mean, these guys have been in power way too long already. It's time to take them down. It's time to take them down, dudes. That's it. So, moving forward, with a check next to that one. Ice wall. According to UNESCO and according to accepted mainstream historical documents, ice wall is just a description. It was never. Whoever told you to, like, a lot of you globalists, like, you go and say ice wall, and then another one says ice wall, and then everyone's repeating it. You guys don't even know where that came from. It's a legend that goes back to supposedly Captain Cook's log, and not Captain Kirk. All right, of course they made Captain Kirk off of Captain Cook's well-known historical reputation. I encourage everyone to look into Captain Cook. I'll put his name up. Captain Cook. Captain Cook has a lot to do with navigation, and he was like one of the forefathers of like seafaring, and he was, you could consider him a pirate because what he did was he did go around robbing like natives and stuff. He'd like stop in islands, and then he was cool with some people, but he was evil too. Towards the end, he turned into an evil guy, being out in the ocean so long. So, anyways, Captain Cook was one of the from what's accepted, he was the first to go to Antarctica in a large ship. See, in those days they didn't have Captain Cook and all and the sailors. This was in the 1700s, I think, or 1800s, something like that. It was 1700s, I think, late 1700s, and they didn't have all that high, that high expensive gear for high altitude or for ice. Or, as a matter of fact, most of the sailors didn't even have shoes. So they tried getting close to Antarctica, but they were ill prepared. They were not ready for it. As they sailed alongside the Antarctic coastline for weeks, they couldn't find anywhere to dock. Of course, because they seen the ice shelf. So they seen the ice shelf, which he put down in his log as after weeks of sailing next to it and not being able to dock. He said he noted in his log that the the Antarctic coastline cliff looked like an ice wall that seemed to go on forever. That was it. That's what he said, and ever since then, people have taken it upon themselves to make it mean whatever they want to make it mean. The legend comes back to Captain Cook. I advise everyone to look up Captain Cook. It's a great historical record about him. Is like he's one of the forefathers of seafaring, and he supposedly had something to do with the sextant, the invention of the sextant, and it's a great story. Like he was out there and fighting with other boats, and I mean the native boats and stuff like that, and it's a great story. Who knows how much of it is true? It did come from UNESCO, but the point being is that the ice wall, there is no real fucking ice wall. It's a description made by Captain Cook, and everyone's running around repeating like weird shit behind it. But just to let you guys know where it came from. Dome. The electric flat earth theory does not believe in a dome, a solid dome. What we believe and what we theorize and hypothesize coincides with mainstream media's Van Allen belts. We believe that we are in an infinite electric realm. This is a dimensional plane of existence. And what is above us is pure energy. That's what it comes, and I'll go more into that. But as far as a solid dome, the reason that is there's a legend behind that as well, is because in some places they found glass and ceramic just falling out of the sky, just like they have found meteorites, which is easily explainable. You have dielectric potential, and it comes across airborne particulates such as like silica and stuff like that. And basically, when lightning hits sand, it turns into glass or ceramics, glass-like ceramics. And this has been seen after large electrical storms. So the ancients seeing this, they seen like the glass or something and the meteorites and all that. But by seeing glass, they went off to make their own their own ancient myth, and which is that there was a dome across because of their falling glass. It was actually, glass has been seen supposedly fall out of the sky during electrical storms. So and that's, like I said, that's easily explainable. You have certain material or certain particulates, airborne particulates that get picked up high into the atmosphere. They come across dielectric potential, electromagnetic potential. Then you have them interacting, and then you have the reactions, and that's what the byproduct of dielectric potential and silica is glass. So that's what that's where the myth of the dome came from. We do not believe it's a solid dome. Again, it's electromagnetic energy and dielectric potential. Okay, moving forward, outer space. You didn't see outer space. You've seen it on TV. This is TV. Okay? That's TV. I'm not gonna go out deeper into that. It's just there's no planets, and then there's like an edge around the planets, like outer space. And here we're gonna go into the edge, because edge and outer space come together. So if you're implying that there's like a Big Bang started first or whatever, then you're implying that there's an edge and it's expanding. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's expanding. That's what the Big Bang's about, and a lot of the other a lot of gravity based fairy tales come back to that there's a something. If you're gonna say that, then there you have to sit there and explain the singularity. The singularity comes back down to it was all alone. It was static. It was by itself. There was no time. There was no space. It was just by itself, and then it just started expanding magically. Like there's according to UNESCO and the Vatican, because this comes back. The UNESCO has something that has a lot to do with the Vatican. I like I said, I encourage everyone to look up UNESCO. It all comes back to these guys. So, anyways, the cosmic egg, Big Bang, that came from the Vatican, and they mixed it up with all this other like crazy madness. So, if you're gonna say that the singularity was by itself, they try to call it the quantum flux. That there was a quantum flux. So that makes no sense. There's a singularity. It's static. And then all of a sudden, before time and space, the quantum flux appears. So if this was before time and this was before space, the quantum flux then must have appeared instantly at the same time as the singularity, because there was no time or space. If it just appeared, then it appeared before time and space. It appeared during the singularity. That means the singularity was never alone to begin with. So that just falls apart right there. You can't have a singularity and then it just all of a sudden decides to start expanding unless you believe in magic and fairy tales and you put faith in that. That's not testable. It's not observable. It's a fairy tale, a bad fairy tale at that, because there's no. And where did the singularity? How was the singularity formed itself? See, it goes back down. It comes back to into an infinite reality. Moving forward to this beyond the singularity, it starts expanding. So if it's expanding, what is it expanding inside of, or across of, or underneath of? Like if it's expanding, there must be something beyond the expansion. So if outer space is expanding, what is beyond outer space? Is it like reality? Other space, anti-space, under space, over space? I've said this before many times. If there's outer space, then that implies an edge. Again, it comes back to falling apart. It collapses. So, outer space and edge are ridiculous. Okay? What you've seen on TV and seen in comic books and have seen in all these other books and stuff and those concepts came from UNESCO. It comes back to UNESCO. So to us to think that Earth is in the middle, of something expanding, that's geocentrism. That it comes back. That fails as well. It can't be expanding. There couldn't, unless you believe in magic and there's a singularity. So that still comes back to that cosmic, that outer space worship of the heavens. Like you're trying to equate us to what's above us. That you're trying to say that we're like the heavens. We're not. Earth is its own self, and I'll go on to explain that. So we see that there can be no edge, there can be no outer space. Let's remember again, outer space is something you've seen on TV. You're like you watch Star Wars, you watch Star Trek, you read books you read sci-fi books. It's purely imaginary. If you're gonna sit there and say that you've seen it on TV because government showed you some footage, then you're a potato, because you can't sit there and put faith on the government. We already know that they're liars, and we already know UNESCO's running an agenda, which comes back to United Nations and the International Monetary Fund. So moving on forward to time. Okay. Time is a man-made concept, to be honest, completely honest. There's no geography itself, and that's time is irrelevant to all of that. I mean, time is what before They used to have different calendars, and you'd go across a certain nation, and they would have a different time. They still do that right now, but it's not as extreme. Like the ancient Mayans had a different calendar, which was totally a flat Earth model. Um, the they're they're able to calculate. They were great astronomers, and they were great astrologists, and they also believed in and worshiping the heavens as well, and but they were able to calculate eclipses and all kinds of stuff, all based on a flat Earth model. So time varies from place to place, from culture to culture, and we're gonna get further from person to person. Yes, that's right. That's what I said. Time is a sense. Time is not something that belongs to everyone at the same time. Time is an individual sense, and I'll explain that. The clock, the clock moves. It ticks. It talks. It ticks. It talks. It ticks. It talks. That's a movement. That's the electrons and current moving it. It's oscillation. It's pulsing. Pa, 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 pa. Just like the heart. And just like Mother Earth is pulsating as well. They know it as a Schumann resonance, and there's other names for it. But this pulse is what runs all of reality. It's dielectric potential and electromagnetic potential, and they're oscillating together. It's a give and take, give and take, give and take, and so the clock moves because energy is moving it. Ta, ta, ta. The digital clock changes image because it's pulsing, because the lights are oscillating, and then they're able to change. So time is actually electrical. It's electrons moving. So just like inside your own body, you have an electric body. Your heart is electromagnetic. Your brain is dielectric potential. You have static. You have electrical signals, and they're sparking. And it's not a straight static line. It's a spark. The spark is oscillation. It's oscillation. It's frequency. That's what frequency is. It's oscillation. I'm not gonna go more further into that because it can get pretty deep. I can break these down later on into separate, more specific videos. I just need to move forward now to the electric flat Earth theory. Now that we know all this other stuff and how it's. Oh yeah, time. I forgot to mention why they unified it. They unified time to schedule, to make agendas. That way they can get all of humanity on one agenda, which comes back to UNESCO. So that's why Einstein went and the Vatican, and they got together, because that did come from the Vatican. The cosmic egg, Big Bang, and general relativity all came from the Vatican, and Lemaitre and Einstein, and they unified. Up until then, time was not actually a concept that's being unified, but he unified it and made it a law. So everyone's believing it's a law. Rather, I just explained that it's an individual sense that everyone gets. That it's just like smell, taste, but it's time, but it's individual. It's not unified as they want us to believe. That unification comes back to curriculum, agendas, school time, work time. That's UNESCO. That's social engineering and social economic engineering. So moving beyond all that madness, the electric flat Earth theory comes down to polarity. What you have is the cosmic macro polar bodies. You have the positive, then you have the negative. It's that simple. See this area right here? Bam, that's flat Earth. It's that simple. This is a circuit. It's an electrical circuit. It's the same. It's the sign that the ancients knew. The ancients knew about this. This right here, the density, the dense zone, is the flat Earth. This is where reality and both polarities come to play together. Literally, they come to play together. So that's basic. That's what it. Was a basic. Like, if you want to get deeper into it, you can look it up. You could talk to other people that are that. A lot of people have adopted this, and it's moving forward. It was real simple. And if you want to move forward, electromagnetism and electrostatic is not complicated. You don't need all these like crazy mathematical concoctions or these myths or any of that. It comes back to basics, and this electromagnetism and this electrostatic is Mother Earth itself. There's electrical earth ground. All living beings share one thing in common, in that they have electrical. Their animation. They're electrically animated. So that's what this comes down to. This right here is freedom. This gives us. This is for us. It's time to get rid of all this madness. Get rid of all that, and start from scratch. Start new. We have to learn to learn. To learn to learn. You have to learn and then learn to learn again, so you can learn and relearn it. You just can't say that this is all real and just give up on learning and be like just repeating shit. You're repeating shit. You're just repeating shit. This right here is everyone's theorizing, hypothesizing, coming up with new hypothesis and giving insight, and working together, as opposed to this. This is just. You guys are agreeing to agree on some fucking on agendas and all this like UNESCO, International Monetary Fund banker shit. You guys have been socially engineered. The psyop is over. This is freedom, guys. Wake up.